What's happening, everybody? It is almost the weekend, which means time for college football, UFC. We got UFC 306 this weekend, and of course, week 2 of the NFL season. But before we get there, the ever so important Friday night MLB DFS slate. So as you guys are watching this, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric is being fancy. He's on a cottage somewhere with, I don't know, doing something fancy. He'll have a story about famous people he met when he came back. But Matt Belman filling in for him in the interim. So do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. What is happening, Matt?
Nothing, man. Happy to be on here with you. It's been a minute. I know we did a show last week, but haven't done one this week yet. So excited to talk some Friday night MLB with you. These shows feel like they're dwindling.
Yeah, it's what do we have left to the MLB regular season? It is
Like a couple more weeks.
Yeah, because the playoffs are starting the first week of October. So yeah, it's just about 2+ weeks, like 2 weeks and 2 days left in the MLB regular season. So yeah, definitely running out of time. And then what's going to be great though about baseball innings, it means basketball is going to be starting October 22nd. That's going to be first NBA DFS slate. So I'm certainly looking forward to that coming down here. And yeah, one other thing that's been nice about the end of the baseball season, weather's kind of been a non-issue. We've been on a really good run, Matt, of weather just not mattering for slates. And I think this is another one. We don't really have to worry all that much about weather. There is a news item that doesn't impact this particular slate, but I just found it to be so interesting that I kind of wanted to bring it up at the top of the show. Did you see Shohei Otani might be pitching in the playoffs this year?
I did just see something come across a little bit ago that they're not ruling it out. That would be phenomenal for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but it's on the table, which I definitely found to be interesting because Dodgers already the favorites to win the World Series. And then if you find out that Shohei Otani is going to be pitching in the playoffs, that would be, the difference between them having, I don't know, like an 18% chance to win the World Series, maybe like as high as a 25% chance or something like that. I'd look on FanGraphs to get like a better idea. That was kind of like a rough estimate, but yeah, kind of interesting piece of news there. It'd be really cool if we do get Otani pitching in the playoffs. Shout out to Chris Williams. He's already gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So Chris, as always, thank you for supporting the channel. Matt, before we go and start breaking down the individual players, offenses, all that deal, any other general thoughts you have on the slate? And if you don't, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the general thoughts on the slate starts and ends with Brady Basso. I mean, 4K against the White Sox, like the dream matchup. He, is expected to work a full starter's role. I feel like the slate starts with him, and it's what you do with him if you play him, etc. So yeah, I think that's like where you start. How about you?
Yeah, and we will start to get into some of those pitchers. And it's kind of interesting to me that Basso, while popular, not insanely so. He's the third most popular pitcher on the slate, sub 30% ownership. There are some popular pitchers on the slate, but like it's nothing problematic. 32% ownership to Cease, 33% to Bybee, 28% to Basso. Also, what's cool about Basso being popular on the low end, I feel like it's been, I don't know, 90% of the slates over the last month and a half, all of the most popular pitchers is just in order of pricing, where it's like the most popular pitcher for full slates, not necessarily for like the 3-4 game slates, but for full slates, it's usually Eric and I are breaking down these slates or you when you're filling in for one of us. And it's like, there's 3 pitchers priced over 9K that are 30+% owned. And then every other pitcher is single digit ownership. It's a little more spread out today. You got more decision points, different kinds of builds of lineups. And that also starts at the top of the pitcher pricing where you got 2 contrarian options that are 9K or more expensive. Schwellenbach 2 that are popular, 9K or more expensive, and 2 that are not pulling ownership. The 2 not getting ownership, Schwellenbach, he's 3% owned at 9K. Really tough match for him against the Dodgers. Freddie Peralta, tough matchup on the road against the Diamondbacks. He's 2% owned. Then you get your popular pitchers. Dylan Cease is 32% owned against the Giants. Yusei Kikuchi, he's 20% owned against the Angels. If you're rostering one of these pitchers, Matt, and we're talking about the 9K or above range on DraftKings, all things being considered, ownership, top odds of being a top scoring pitcher, projection, all that deal. Who's the pitcher you like the most in the 9K range?
For me, it's Kikuchi. I think that Cease has the highest upside, but you look at his recent form, really hard for me to get on board with Cease right now, considering he's still the most expensive pitcher on the board, albeit not crazy pricey, but still the most, the most expensive pitcher on the board, right behind Peralta. Yeah, sorry. But he's also getting the most ownership, right behind Tanner Bybee in that regard. So for me, just given his recent form, hard for me to get on board with Cease. I like Kikuchi here more. Been much better recently. Been very, very good since he got over to Houston. I think this Angels lineup is better against left-handed pitching, but they're throwing out a ton of young guys tonight that don't have experience against anyone of Kikuchi's level, throwing it from the left side. So I'm gravitating towards Kikuchi here. I understand that Cease's upside is always really, really high, especially in this matchup. But, man, it's hard to look at what Cease has been doing lately and feel comfortable with him as chalk.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the numbers, so I'm going to preface it with this. I am getting to Cease as my most rostered pay-up option today. Not my favorite pitcher on the slate. He is overall my third favorite pitcher. The other two popular pitchers I like more than him. But you look at Cease's numbers, to your point, in recent months, and he was great in March and April, great in May, great in June, great in July, okay in August, and then really struggled so far in September. So I do want to kind of try to dig into this to figure out what it is that has gone wrong for him, because it's not just he's given up runs. The underlying numbers don't look great, but most alarming, he seems to be struggling to throw the ball in the strike zone. And it's leading to a lot of walks as well as decreased strikeouts. So if you look at the strikeout rate by month for Cease, 29% March and April, 33% May, 32.5% June, 35% in July. Like we said, those numbers all elite. Then 22% in August, 18% so far in September. So last month and a half has been a struggle for him. Let's see if we can figure out why. What are
He's
these
throwing
matchups?
a ton of pitches. He's throwing a lot of pitches per plate appearance, especially on the road. So that is not helping him, and that's playing into the walks. So, yeah, strikeout rate's down. Like, he just isn't in the best form. And we've seen this from Cease in the past. He's had ups and downs throughout his career.
One thing that is crazy you kind of brought up there, his amount of road starts that he's made as of late, it's crazy. So since the end of July, he has made 2 starts at home. Giants in his last outing, Mets on August 22nd. Every other start he made in August or September, it was on the road. So that's certainly something that could be playing a little bit of a factor here for Dylan Cease. Let's see if there's anything else I could find in his numbers. So one thing that is going to kind of help him. So even though this isn't another road start, it's in San Francisco. So it's, as pitcher friendly as a start could possibly be. But I mean, the recent matchups, it's not like they were brutally difficult or anything like that.
That's what gets me the most here is like, it almost is, it doesn't matter what the matchup is. If Cease is on, he's going to have really good success against basically anyone, as he showed against the Dodgers and Cleveland. But man, he struggled against Miami and Colorado. Like, it doesn't mean he's going to not be good tonight. And the projections really like him, especially at this price point. But there's a lot of risk here, I think, right now.
Yeah, and I see Eric Johnson in the chat said, "Does Greg look whiter than normal today?" Yeah, I guess I'm not as dark-skinned as I usually am. Here's something that I have never been able to figure out. I don't know how to do lighting. So to Eric's point, this is like an actual thing. The reason it's because I'm wearing a black shirt today, and it changed like the complexion of how everything shows up on camera. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to do anything. I don't know lighting. I don't know cameras, but I have noticed that the color shirt I wear makes an insane difference in how I look on camera. If I wear, I remember I stopped wearing white shirts on camera for the most part, unless there's just a shirt I really feel like wearing one day. But I remember there was a time where I was wearing a white shirt and people were like, "Did Greg dye his hair today? It looks jet black." And it's just the way things show up on camera and how light gets absorbed by the camera, depending on what color shirt you're wearing. I think in hindsight also, if I was to redo my office, I probably would have painted it slightly darker colors for just general lighting. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know lighting. It's just, I don't know if you've ever noticed that for yourself also, Matt, where it just like different colors ends up making you look different. I don't get it. I don't know how it works. I don't know how anything works.
Yeah, I'm not good with lighting either. I've noticed it a little bit, but I think with a beard, it doesn't affect me as much.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's why Matt looks so dark today, I guess. I don't know. Him and I, we're trying to run the least amount of pigment ever on a DFS show, which in the Guinness Book of World Record, that's quite an accomplishment because it's stiff competition.
Very much so, and I am very white, just like you. So I think we could be in the running there.
I think we're right up there. The Casper Award, as it goes in the Guinness Book of World Records. So as far as Dylan Cease goes, he's my favorite guy who's 9K or more. But with that said, if I am trying to just tell you who my two favorite chalk pitchers are, it's not Cease. It's actually Bibee and Basso, who we'll talk about in a little bit here. But Freddie Peralta, Spencer Schwellenbach, any interest in them as super contrarian options?
Nah, I just think the matchups are too tough and the pricing is rough there as well. Like Peralta's kind of like Cease. Recent form isn't great. Yeah, much tougher matchup than Cease.
People in chat letting us know also Tanner Houck. If you saw Tanner Houck scratch today, Richard Fitz will start for the Red Sox. So that's an NPC name if I've ever seen one. Let's look at I don't know anything about Richard Fitz.
He made one start and wasn't very good, I'm pretty sure.
Let's see. All right, Richard Fitz, 24 years old. He has made one start. It actually did go well at the big league level. He pitched 5 2/3 scoreless innings, only 2 strikeouts, 1 walk. So not a lot of strikeout stuff there. Average fastball velocity is right around 95 miles per hour. But all right, he's pitched 5 2/3 innings in the big leagues. This is also rare. So his minor league numbers, he has split time between the Yankees and the Red Sox in the minor leagues. So maybe he's part of like the Verdugo trade or something.
Yes, he was. He was.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think like how else somebody would have ended up going from the Yankees to the Red Sox. His numbers in the minor leagues this year were not good. 4.17 ERA, 4.86 FIP. Looks like he's going to be stretched out because he's only pitched as a starter in the minor leagues this year. His one appearance in the big leagues also came as a starter, 5 2/3 innings. And when did he make that appearance? September 8th. So yeah, he should be rested. All right, so we're going to be getting full start out of him. I mean, the simple way to look at this now, the Yankees are in a considerably better spot than they were before. What's the pricing for the Yankees hitters? I'm going to check this here. All right, so Yankees are priced. All right, so it's still super expensive, even though it was going to be a matchup against Tanner Houck. Aaron Judge, $6,800. Jazz Chisholm, $5,400. Juan Soto, $6,500. So the Yankees are certainly going to be a team that we want to stack. Maybe we didn't want to before because it's a good matchup. But the thing I was interested to see is like, were the Yankees hitters maybe priced down for a matchup against Tanner Houck? That is not the case. This is still a super, super expensive offense. So I think the Yankees are going to be a team to stack, but it's going to be hard to just jam them. But what do you make of the Yankees going up against Richard Fitz?
Honestly, I like them against Houck, who hasn't been great and who's seen a velocity dip a little bit, dealing with some dead arm. I mean, Fitz is certainly no better than Houck. And I always like going to these teams like, that are facing a pitcher who wasn't prepared to start tonight. I know we've seen it a couple times with Philly. And yeah, we saw it with Philly that one time against Miami, and they were really good. I think you could see a similar outcome tonight with the Yankees. They're really expensive, but with Basso and enough good teams, I think that they're totally viable for like a main stack.
Yeah. Also, good point brought up in the YouTube chat here. His name is Dick Fitz, which is hilarious. So yeah, Sean O pointing out that Dick Fitz is stretched out. That is the case. Fully stretched out as a starter is Dick Fitz. So we've got one of the better names on the mound today. Dick Fitz. We had old Dick Mountain. Remember when Rich Hill wore that on the back of his jersey, and then baseball did away with that promotion?
So good.
Which, I mean, not a promotion. It was, what was it? It was like nickname night or something where players just put.
I think it was Players Weekend thing. Jersey. Yeah, the Players Weekend.
Yeah, so Rich Hill went with Dick Mountain, and then baseball stepped in like, all right, guess we can never do this again. But yeah, Dick Fitz would have been a good one. Let's get back talking about some of the pitchers, Matt. And in the 8K range, you got Tanner Bibee, your guy on the Cleveland Guardians, pulling 33% ownership at $8,300. Nobody else is all that popular in the 8K range. We've got Bailey Ober. He's 14% owned at 8,600. Clark Schmidt is 10% owned at $8,200. Kevin Gausman is 11% owned at 8K. If you're rostering one pitcher in the 8K range, are you going to Tanner Bybee, or is it one of the more contrarian options that stands out to you?
It's definitely Bybee for me. Just love the spot, love the price tag. Really good spot for a win. Don't care that much about that, but really high K prop. He's cheap. There's enough places to go on offense to get different. Like if I were dead set on playing the Cubs and or Astros together, then I may be thinking about getting away from Bybee because of his popularity, but I'm not. So I'm not worried about the ownership. He's my favorite pitcher on the slate pretty clearly, even over Basso, just because even with Basso, like there's still some more risk there than I think with Bybee. So I like him a lot here. Like I get why someone would play Ober. If I were playing the Cubs and the Astros together, like I just said, I'd probably think about playing Ober over Bybee, but I'm not doing that, so I don't need to. I'll play Bybee. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, Bybee's the guy for me in this price range. And then also, if we're talking about the cash game side of the slate, because that's going to be a question that we get in Discord. If it's not already sitting there for us, not quite yet, but somebody's going to ask it soon, even though nobody has yet. They're going to ask what to do for cash games. You want to play 2 out of the 3 of Dylan Cease, Tanner Bybee, and Brady Basso. I personally prefer Basso and Bybee as my cash game combination. It does give you a lot of extra spending space for offense. Typically, that's not the direction I go. But when I just look at my exposure now, everything does shake out. Cease is the one who gets left out for me. Would that be the same for yourself?
100%. Like I like Kikuchi, and I don't really want to go 100% Basso and Bybee, but if I were playing one lineup, it would definitely be Basso and Bybee for me.
Are there any pitcher, because I'm on the same page as you with Bybee, if he's the one I get the most exposure to in the 8K range. He's my favorite target, even relative to ownership in this price range. If you weren't playing him, who's the contrarian option you like the most that's priced in the 8K range?
I think for me, it's definitely Bailey Ober. Like he's the highest owned amongst the other guys, but still 15% is pretty contrarian. Good matchup against Cincinnati. We just saw Sonny Gray carve them yesterday. Ober's good. He's a little more boomer busty than you might like at this price point, but his upside is just as high here as Bybee's probably. I know a slightly lower K prop, but on their best days, I think Ober and Bybee have similar scores here. So it'd be him for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's Bailey Ober for myself as well. Actually, looking through my lineups, outside of the 3 chalky pitchers, the next 2 ones I get the most of are Yusei Kikuchi and Bailey Ober. And as far as Bailey Ober goes, and he's like Eric's arch nemesis. His favorite team is the Twins. Bailey Ober's been good, and Eric denies that Bailey Ober's like ever pitched a good game in his life. But you look at Bailey Ober's numbers this year, they're pretty damn good. He's not like an ace, but I don't know. Like you look at his numbers, you go, that's a solid second starting pitcher. 3.77 ERA, 3.28 expected ERA, strikeout upside, nice for DFS purposes, 26.5% K rate. And coming into the league, he was seen as somebody who maybe would struggle to generate a lot of strikeouts, but that really hasn't been the case. Even though he doesn't have the biggest fastball in the world, his average fastball velocity only 91.8 miles per hour. I guess it just gets in on hitters really quick because he's like 7 feet tall. He's got that really long release point where basically hitters probably feel like he's on top of them when he throws the baseball. So as a result, he's figured it out. He's found a way to make it work for himself. He's having a really good year. There's been some lucky elements to it. He has a 237 BABIP this year, but still the underlying numbers suggest that his ERA is pretty much what it should be. If anything, maybe even a little bit better. So Bailey Ober, he's my second favorite guy in this price range. If you want to be contrarian, I get a little bit overweight to field on Bailey Ober. I think it's a pretty reasonable way to go. We got a super chat here from Chris Williams. Chris says, great show like always, guys. Hit the like button, ladies and gentlemen. Atone for your sins. A question for the DK night slate. He wants to know, in what order do we like Kikuchi, Cease, DeGrom, and then for bats, the Astros, the Brewers, and the Diamondbacks? Yeah, so if we are just talking about the night slate, those 3 pitchers, DeGrom has to be third. I just don't imagine he's going to be pitching like super deep into the game or anything. I'll go Cease 1, Kikuchi 2 if you're building a bunch of lineups and trying to figure out your priorities for ownership in terms of how often they should be in your lineups. But for yourself, Matt, would you put Kikuchi over Cease? Would you put DeGrom over Cease? What would be your order?
I would put DeGrom last like you. I'm struggling with Cease versus Kikuchi. Like, sounds like you definitely like Cease more. Why?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with I have run Sims and I just get to Cease in a lot more lineups. More so than anything, though, it's a matchup against the Giants and also in San Francisco. And then also Kikuchi, not quite the same strikeout stuff that Cease has. Let's see also, what's the ownership looking like for the night slate? Also for the night slate, by the way, the ownership doesn't, the same ownership. So it's not like there's a gap between them for the night slate. So that's when you're looking at like it's 58% on Cease, 52% on Kikuchi. So very, very similar in terms of ownership. And then also our top two pitcher odds, it's 46% for Cease, 39% for Kikuchi. When I run lineups, I get to more of Cease. So it's hard for me to not have Cease over him.
That's fair.
And then DeGrom, DeGrom rules, obviously. I hope he's able to stay healthy, but at first start back, I would be a little bit hesitant, even though he's pitching against the Mariners. $8,500, a little bit of a price decrease from what you normally see out of DeGrom, but I would take a wait and see approach for that.
The only thing I'll say about him on the late slate is, I don't love DeGrom or Cease or Kikuchi, anyways. And I don't think he has to beat that many guys. And it's certainly a matchup where he could strike out 10 guys in 5 innings. So I think you project him lower than those guys, but on the slate, like on the late slate, I don't mind taking some shots.
Yeah, he would be in some lineups, but just in the interest of the way that he laid it out for us, like rank them, I would have him third amongst those pitchers.
True. Fair.
And then for hitters, and also he's told us that this is his ranking, wants to know if we agree with him. But for offenses, then he says Astros, Brewers, Diamondbacks. Yeah, Astros hard to not have number 1 against Sam Aldeguerri. Number 2 of those, it was Brewers against Erod. And then 3, he had the Diamondbacks. Yeah, if you're ranking those 3 offenses, I feel pretty good saying that those 3, that order, Astros 1, Brewers 2, Diamondbacks 3. Would you change the order of those 3 stacks that he's looking at?
Nah, I think you're right on there.
Yeah. I mean, the Astros are going to be super popular for the night slate, but even so, we have them under-owned in the top stacks tool. We have them with massive top stack odds, and no other teams are comparable to the Astros, the Brewers, or the Diamondbacks. So, yeah, those 3 teams in that order looks pretty good for my perspective there, Chris. So I say roll with it in that order in terms of priority. Let's get back to pitcher, Matt. Anything you want to talk about in the 8K range for pitchers on DK?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's talk about the 7K range, which is, it's as dead could be. We'll talk about all the punts after this. The 7K pitchers, the most popular one is Zach Littell, pulling 4.4% ownership. Nobody else here is popular. Is the field missing out on anybody, Matt, or is it right that nobody's getting any ownership in this range?
I don't see it with anyone here. I'd be kind of surprised if one of these guys ends up being a guy you need, to be quite honest.
Yeah, let me look at what my exposures are to this 7K range. Yeah, here's who I have the most of, Matt. I have Zach Littell in 2 out of my top 150 lineups. So less than the field. And not a single lineup with any of the other 7K pitchers. I feel pretty good saying that you don't have to go there. Not a price range we have to go to. Punt options. Brady Basso is right around just under 30% on. Let me refresh ownership, see if anything has changed. 27.7% was the number. Now, updated 28.4%, more or less the same. What do you feel about Brady Basso? Flat min, 4K, ideal matchup against the Chicago White Sox. The only thing that could be better is if he was pitching at home as opposed to pitching on the road. Other than that, everything looks about as good as could possibly be on paper for Brady Basso. Min price, popular but not crazy, so matchup against the White Sox. Do you like him at this price point in the fairly popular ownership?
I don't know how you don't like him. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work out. It's baseball. It's not like this guy's proven, but you look at his props, you look at the tools, like even against this 4K pitcher, the White Sox still have a bottom 4 top stack percentage. I think he's going to be higher owned than we're projecting, but I don't really care. I don't love the pitching up top. Like we project him for close to 15 fantasy points. That could be low. Like he's the stone man against the White Sox. I mean, we just saw Joey Cantillo. Like if nothing else, that did it for me. Joey Cantillo hasn't had any success at the major league level, like whatsoever. Struggled against every opponent he had faced. Now, granted, some tough spots, but he carved this White Sox lineup. So again, doesn't mean it's going to happen tonight, but I don't know how you don't at least like Basso at 4K. He's got a 50% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. I mean, yeah, for me, it's a pretty easy play.
He's showing up the most for me of any pitcher by a really, really wide margin. It's hard to get away from him. Flatman, it would be one thing if he was like 40% owned, which he might be in single entry fields and some of the small field stuff. But for large field GPPs, it doesn't look like he's going to be crazy popular. It's just hard for me to look past him. And then as far as how stretched out is he threw 6 innings in his last outing. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts to 1 walk. So I don't think that means he has to go 6 innings in this start, but like I'm not concerned of him being a guy who only throws 2 or 3 innings. You know, if he gets hurt or struggles, it's a different story. But assuming a normal start, I think we're getting 5 or 6 innings out of Basso at the flat min against the Chicago White Sox. I think he's the best overall play on the slate.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just it's 4K against the White Sox. I don't know how you don't at least like it.
Are there any other punt pitchers that you like or are considering?
No. Like I don't think taking shots on another slate, like maybe take shots on like a Javier Assad just because he's facing the Rockies, even though he's not good, but don't need it here. It's Basso. Again, I'm not going to be surprised if his ownership is even like double what we're projecting in smaller field type stuff, but I don't care. I'll play him. I think you definitely get leverage with the White Sox stack, but man, like even if Basso isn't good, I still struggle to see the White Sox like winning this slate just because of what it takes to win a slate like this. So for me, I'm all on Basso. This is just how I see it. I don't think there's another value pitcher that even compares. I don't think we've seen one this year that compares, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I have to think about all the pitchers this year. I remember there being some crazy 4K spots, but like I don't remember. I just remember it happening. I don't remember the pitchers, like the matchups or anything. But yeah, I mean, I get Brady Basso in 70% of my lineups with the under 30% projected ownership.
Okay.
So he's the guy I want to go to. And I agree with you. If I was going to recommend any other pitcher for cheap, it would be Javier Assad. It's just kind of unnecessary on this slate. And another thing too is the price gap between Basso and Assad. It's the same price. It's about the same price gap as Assad to Tanner Bybee.
Yeah, I mean exactly. So like Assad is 50% more than Basso when you look at Basso's 4K salary. That's a lot. So I'm with you. I don't even think it's comparable. The only guy I can remember 4K like this that was guaranteed to be a starter, and he was actually in this exact same spot but at home, was Simeon Woods Richardson against the White Sox at home. He was 4K, really popular, was not great, but not bad. I think Basso could be a better DFS pitcher than Simeon Woods Richardson. I might be wrong there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I remember Simeon Woods Richardson. So here's a difference also. I remember that Simeon Woods Richardson slate, which was also him pitching against the White Sox. When I ran the Sims that day, it was giving me a ton of White Sox for leverage. That is not the case today. And a big part of it too is Simeon Woods Richardson, if I remember, was projected for like 40% ownership that slate.
Mm-hmm. It was a day slate.
Isn't that popular. So that's another reason why the White Sox aren't showing up as a team, at least for large field GPPs, that are showing up as a leverage stack. Now, what could change if I was building lineups specifically for single entry, which we could talk about in a little bit, if we assume that Basso might be 40 to 50% owned in single entry, that to me kind of changed the potential outlook of the Chicago White Sox. But at least for large field stuff, I just like riding with Basso, and I'm not seeing a lot of leverage stacking against him even because the ownership isn't all that crazy high. Anything else you want to add about DraftKings pitchers? If not, we can look at the FanDuel side of pitching.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's do FanDuel.
I think Matt might have cut out there. So I'll go and look at the FanDuel pitchers now. And here's what we have on the FanDuel side is the same three pitchers are the most popular, but the ownership and the order is a little bit different. Tanner Bybee is 26% owned on FanDuel. Dylan Cease is 21% owned. And Brady Basso at 6K, only 12% owned on FanDuel. So different scenario. Basso, $2,000 more expensive. Min salary is different on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. Matt, if you're rostering one pitcher in a GPP on FanDuel, are we going to Basso at 6K? Or are you going to Bybee? Which direction makes the most sense to you?
I think it's definitely one of those two. I think I go to Bybee just because, I don't think it's going to be hard to get what you want with Bybee at 8,500. But if it is, I don't mind dropping down to Basso. I trust that Bybee's going to go deeper in this game. Like, we still don't know if Basso gets into trouble, like how deep they're going to extend him. So I just feel better about Bybee on a one pitcher site. That's probably where I'm going.
Yeah. So for me, cash games, it's Bybee. For a GPP, being able to get Basso, especially because there's a Coors Field game today, being able to get Basso at 6K is really interesting to me on FanDuel when he's only pulling 12.5% ownership. Same sort of thing I said before would be, different scenario. If we're talking about like a single entry on DraftKings and maybe we could expect him to be 40 to 50% owned. For FanDuel, though, 12% ownership, I don't know. It opens up a lot in your lineups and you're also getting yourself a little bit different. I do think this, though, if you are playing Basso on FanDuel, I mentioned him and there being the Coors Field game. I have a feeling that just about everybody that's stacking Coors Field is going to have Basso in those lineups. So I think that's what's going to make sense. Now that Tanner Houck has been scratched, maybe Brady Basso on FanDuel with the Yankees is a pay-up stack. Maybe that's the way to get a little bit different that we could explore when we're talking about stacks. Any contrarian pitchers that stand out to you on FanDuel? Because anybody who isn't Basso, Cease, or Bybee is less than 5% owned.
I think if you like a cheap stack, Kikuchi's interesting. Like, if the price just doesn't matter, he's in a very good spot for a win, which matters on FanDuel. I expect him to go deep in this game, but, points per dollar wise, he doesn't look very good. So I'd probably stick to just playing Bybee and Bybee or Basso and just get a little different with my bats.
Eduardo Rodriguez is $6,700 on FanDuel. He's not that much more expensive than Basso. Now, Erod has been terrible this year. 5.83 ERA, 6.19 expected ERA. I still prefer Basso, but if I was building a bunch of FanDuel lineups, I wouldn't mind taking shots on Erod and just saying, historically, this has been a top of the rotation starter. Maybe he's able to get back to form. And even if he isn't, he's priced as if he's one of the worst pitchers in baseball now at $6,700. It may be worth some GPP flyers, but Basso overall my favorite FanDuel GPP option. We'll talk about hitters here in a second, Matt. But before we do, any other final thoughts on pitching, whether it be DraftKings or FanDuel?
I don't think so, no.
All right, let's go into the Discord here. No questions there, but if you guys do have any questions for us in Discord, at me, and I'll see those questions. We can answer them on the show. It is one of the perks of being a Stochastic sub is you get access to our Discord channel, no matter what package you sign up for, and links for all of them are down below in the YouTube description box. We are also having, like we mentioned before, basketball is going to be starting up soon. And something new that I'm going to be doing for basketball this year, every single day, I'm going to be doing in office hours in the middle of the day when injury reports come out and just answer any questions you guys have, either general strategy or any other stuff you want to ask. Like News God was asking me about cereals the other day. We could discuss that kind of stuff. Whatever it is that's on your mind, I'll be in Discord every single weekday once basketball season starts to answer all the questions you guys have. So I think that'll be a fun way to get a Discord even more involved than it already is. But let's talk about stacks, Matt, and we'll get back to the DraftKings stacks here. And then also I'm going to refresh the ownership to see if anything has changed. And no, I had the fresh run of ownership up here already. Two teams are pulling north of 10% ownership. The Cubs playing in Coors Field. The Astros playing against Sam Aldeguerri in Los Angeles. But it's a relatively spread out slate as far as ownership is concerned because You got those teams over 10%. The Twins are just under 10%. Cleveland Guardians 5.5% as the fourth most popular team on the slate. So super, super spread out here as far as ownership is concerned. If you're building one lineup for a single entry, Matt, which direction would you go in for small field single entry stuff?
It's a good question. I think there's a ton of different ways you can go. There's so many good spots. I don't think ownership is going to get crazy on anyone. I do expect the Cubs and the Astros to be the highest owned as we're projecting. For me, I like the Dodgers a lot. With Basso, you can get them, but they're still really expensive and hard to fit. So I think that's where I'd go. The Dodgers, always crazy high upside, guaranteed 9 at bats. I like a couple other, low owned teams that are cheaper, but I think the Dodgers are my favorite team on the board.
Yeah, so this is one of these slates where single entry is dramatically different for me than large field stuff. There isn't a spot that I really love for leverage unless, how popular do you think Basso gets in like the 121 single entry? Could he be 50% owned?
I do. I think he could. Yes.
If he gets to those levels, I do think the White Sox potentially come into play as a leverage stack. But the team that I like, I'm going to go because I'm still not exactly sure what to make of what the Basso ownership is going to be. So if I don't have a particular leverage spot to be getting to, then it's just like, all right, who's an offense that I think has upside that isn't all that popular? And in single entry for me, it's also a team I like a little bit for large field stuff. Colorado Rockies, a team I was playing a ton in single entry earlier in the year, but just haven't been relevant as of late. I think part of it is, when's the last time we had a Coors Field game on a main slate? It's been a minute, has it not?
Yeah, Colorado was away last week, all week. So we haven't seen them at home since I can't even remember who played there. But, yeah, the Rockies look great in the tools. And I was going to say them. And I like picking on Assad. I've done it a bunch this year. His underlying numbers aren't very good.
Yeah.
I can't do it on a slate like this with other good teams. Now, I think they're in a really good spot and not getting ownership. They're also really expensive. So, per the tools, I think they're the best contrarian play on the slate. I'm just gravitating towards other spots.
Assad does have the 3.14 ERA this year, but he's got a 4.58 expected ERA, a 4.46 FIP. And this is always something that stands out to me about a pitcher when they're pitching in Coors Field. And they also have had like a fairly lucky season. Assad pitches to contact. He's a sub 20% strikeout rate. So when you get a guy like this that's been very reliant on BABIP luck this year, he's got a 278 BABIP and he's got a 19% strikeout rate. That's a bad formula for Coors Field. He needs the ball to be hit at fielders, and that just doesn't always happen in the big outfields that exist in Colorado. So if I want to be contrarian for single entry, which I do because I look at teams like the Chicago Cubs, the Houston Astros, in large field stuff, I'm not too concerned about their ownership, especially not the Cubs, who we have being as massively under-owned. For single entry, though, I think we could see the Astros and Cubs hitters all be like 20-ish% owned, the top end guys. And that's where I think they're a little bit over-owned. So I feel like I have to go somewhere else. And then if I'm going to take Chicago and Houston out of the equation, Colorado is the team that stands out the most to me. So Colorado Rockies, that's the team I like the most for single entry. Large field GPPs, though, give me the Chicago Cubs in Colorado against Austin Gomber. We've got them with a 17% chance to be the top scoring stack on the slate that dwarfs any other team. The next highest, it's the Houston Astros, and they're at where'd it go? I just asked 10.5%. So nearly double the odds of the Chicago Cubs to be the highest scoring team relative to the Houston Astros. And then also pitcher in Austin Gomber, whose numbers this year, the 4.5 ERA, that's not terrible for a guy who's been pitching in Coors Field, but 5.03 expected ERA, 4.79 FIP. Another pitcher has had some good BABIP luck, 280 BABIP overall for the year here on Austin Gomber. If you look at projection sites and where they have as the fair talent level for Austin Gomber, it's terrible, Matt. Steamer has him projected with a 6 ERA as his fair watermark for the rest of the year. Zips has him at 5.4. The Bat has him at 6.03. Austin Gomber's no good. The Cubs offense, it's been weird this year. The Cubs were great at the start of the year. They were terrible in the middle of the year. Now they're good again at the end of the year, and I really like the matchup for them as well. For large field GPPs, I think the Cubs are just pretty easily the top overall stack of the day.
Yeah, I'm with you there. They're coming in under-owned. I'm totally with you on the small field stuff too, like the single entry. I think that they're going to be really popular along with Houston. I think Houston is going to end up like right there with Chicago. I think people are going to try to get quote unquote sneaky with Houston, and they're not going to be low owned at all. Even the lefties, people know that Alvarez and Tucker are really good. So I think Houston and the Cubs, anywhere else you go, is going to be different. I like the Dodgers. The Dodgers versus the Rockies here is the classic old DFS. One team's really good, facing a very good pitcher. The other team is not good, facing a not very good pitcher. Sometimes it's going to work out where the Rockies do great and the Dodgers don't. Sometimes it's going to work out vice versa. That's how baseball goes. I'm on the top Dodger side tonight, but then I also do like Cleveland, who's facing Zach Littell, who's another guy. His underlying numbers are much worse than his actual numbers. It's hot in Cleveland still. I like the Guardians here, and I like the Cardinals against Kevin Gausman, who I expect to get some love.
We have a super chat from Sean Jeezy. He's saying, hey guys, feels like Basso builds are going to be funneled towards the Coors Field game. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, especially in some of the smaller field stuff. But I've got a couple answers I really like for his question. He wants to know, are there any expensive but low-owned stacks you like to get different? I already hit on one of them, the Colorado Rockies. I think that's one really sensible one. The other one for me, though, it's the Yankees. So even though ownership is updated for our friend Dick Fitz pitching for the Boston Red Sox, the Yankees aren't popular. And a lot of it's because of their price point, but they're only pulling 4.4% ownership as a team. Let's get back to Fitz's numbers, because we talked about them like 30 minutes ago when we first found out that he was going to be starting for the Red Sox. And he's made one start in the big leagues. Not a whole lot we could pull from that. It was 5 2/3 innings. But his AAA starts that he made this year, he does a 4.17 ERA and a 4.86 FIP down in AAA. That's not great. He's only got one big league start. His second big league start is coming on short notice on the road in Yankee Stadium against this Yankees offense. This could go very, very poorly for Fitz, and the field just isn't getting there. I think a lot of it has to do with the pitching change, and people might kind of get locked into what they want to play earlier in the day, but 4% ownership to the Yankees against Fitz. Are there any other contrarian pay-up offenses you like more than the Rockies or the Yankees?
I do. I like the Dodgers. They're a little bit more expensive than the Yankees, but I think that their lineup, I think it's slightly better than the Yankees, 1 through 5. I think the Yankees have the best 1-2 combo in Judge and Soto, but the Freeman, Betts, Otani, Hernandez, Muncy 1 through 5 is insanely good. I like the Dodgers here. I think your Rockies call makes sense. I think it'd be between those two teams. I like Cleveland, but they're less expensive now that Kwan has been scratched. So Dodgers and Yankees for me. I like both those teams.
Yeah, and then the chat trip says Houston. And the problem with, at least in the way that Sean phrased the question to us, I like Houston as a stack today. The problem is they are also going to be very popular. So I think Sean's just looking for a contrarian way, even though he mentioned Coors Field. I think Houston's also going to be very popular in lineups with Basso. I don't think it's crazy to think this. We've got Houston is 11% owned as a team. The Cubs 13% owned now, so they are the total 24% owned. That's not that much different than what Basso's ownership is. I really do think that just about, I don't know, maybe 75% of the Cubs or Astros stacks in the field today are going to have Basso in them. So I think the easiest way to be contrarian, even if you play Basso, stack any team other than the Cubs or Astros. Yankees, Rockies, they both make sense to me. Matt had mentioned liking the Dodgers. The one issue I have with that is I do think Schwellenbach is much better than some of the other pitchers these other offenses are going up against, but it's the Dodgers. And you could just, it could even be a secondary stack of the Dodgers. You're just targeting some of the top end guys there. So not as much the Dodgers for me as those other teams, but I understand the case for them. Are there any contrarian stacks do you like on DraftKings that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, my favorite stack that fits that mold is going to be St. Louis. Gausman is the classic example of a guy whose underlying numbers are much worse than his actual numbers. He's been kind of subpar all year. He's going to get some ownership. We didn't really talk about him, but he's cheap at 8K. I really like the way this Cardinals lineup sets up. They've got a 2K guy in Thomas Segis, who I like. They've got cheap hitters up and down their lineup. I like St. Louis here. Again, guaranteed 9 at bats in a spot that's not bad for offense against Gaussman, who is overrated in my opinion right now. So St. Louis is a team I like a lot, and they're going to be unowned in like the 111 and the $11 type stuff.
And I mean, I've already gone over the ones that I like that are contrarian, the Yankees, the Rockies. So I don't really have anything else to add to that. And then, yeah, for large field stuff, I like the Astros and the Cubs as well, but the field's there. They're already popular. So those are my 4 favorite stacks: Yankees, Rockies, and then the chalk, Astros and Cubs, the ones that make the most sense to me. Let's look at FanDuel stacks. We got a question from Mr. Cool Cam in chat. He wants to know, for FanDuel, what is our favorite stack? Yeah, so on the FanDuel side of things, we've got even more ownership going to the Cubs and the Astros. Cubs 17% owned on FanDuel. The Astros are 13% owned. So especially in single entry, you have to be really concerned about the ownership on those teams. And then also, while I still like them for large field tournaments, I also don't like them quite as much in large field tournaments on FanDuel because of how popular they are. So I'll ask you same sort of question, Matt. Is your favorite stack on FanDuel the Cubs, the Astros, or are you going to go in a different direction because they're even more popular on FanDuel?
I'm going to go in a different direction because they're even more popular on FanDuel. So, yeah, they're just easier to get to. On FanDuel, it's the same. It's the same characters. The Rockies, the Yankees, the Dodgers. The Yankees are getting more love here. Another team I like that's not going to be popular on either site is the Brewers. You mentioned Erod in passing because he's so cheap on FanDuel, but you also mentioned how bad he's been. Milwaukee has crushed left-handed pitching. They're going from San Francisco to now Arizona, much better spot for hitting. I like Milwaukee as a contrarian stack that, again, contrarian, so no one's going to get there.
The contrarian stacks definitely look a little bit different on FanDuel because the Yankees are 7% owned there. So the field has figured out, at least on the FanDuel side of things, that Dick Fitz is somebody to go ahead and attack. I still like the Rockies, though. 5% owned. Everything applies. I said about Javier Assad not having the best pitching profile for Coors Field, the lack of strikeout stuff. So, yeah, I like the Colorado Rockies as my favorite contrarian stack for the FanDuel side of things. Are there any other stacks on FanDuel that look considerably different or better to you than they do on DraftKings?
Looks pretty similar.
Okay, so with that in mind, anything else you want to talk about for stacks on FanDuel or DraftKings? If not, we can do our home run picks.
Yeah, let's do our home run picks.
All right, and chat, you guys know the deal. Fire up some of your dong picks, and we will see who it is that you guys are picking to go yard. How about for yourself, Matt? No Coors Field. Coors Field is cheating. I'll relate to chat as well. Don't pick anybody from Coors Field. Outside of Coors Field, Matt, who are you picking to homer tonight?
Okay, I've been waiting for this question, been thinking about it all day. This is going to be a guy. This is like outside the box, but not usually. Like usually I go with some cheap rando. This is a guy that's not going to get any love on the DFS site. I actually like him at his price tag because of that. Ellie De La Cruz going yard tonight.
Let's see for myself. Who do I want to pick? I want to go with a Yankee. Aaron Judge feels a little cheaty. So I'm going to go with Juan Soto then. I know that none of them are all that popular. We've got Aaron Judge is projected for 5% ownership. Soto is projected for 4% ownership. So I'm getting a little bit off the board here, even though these are like marquee players. How about I'll do this? Judge and Soto both homer today, Matt. That's something I don't think that's never been done here. I'm going to pick 2 players from the same team to homer. Judge and Soto, they are both going to go yard today. Let's see what we have from chat. Ross K is going with Ketel Marte. David Wayne going with Jackson Trio. He seems to homer every single day now. Wookie 23 is going with Willie Adames. We've got Jay Ram from JS, Royce Lewis from Anthony Harris, Jazz Chisholm from Taco 933, Shohei Otani from Matt Riley. We've got Adolis Garcia from Sherlock, Brent Rooker from Father Time, Rookie-O from Tizad. I don't know. I probably just said a slur in some other language or something, but that's a Rookie-O from him. Lawrence Butler from Trip, Jose Ramirez from Donnie Boone. We've got Tyler O'Neill for 2 homers from Ryan Stubbs, Yordan Alvarez from Sotex, Kyle Tucker from Michael Pavlik, Taylor Ward is the pick that we have from K. Wellett's Soul. Marvin H. is also going with Juan Soto. Lance Thomas from, I think he means Lane Thomas, from Pierre Hines. Josh Naylor from Alex Diaz. Jazz Chisholm from Io Kimbrough. Gary Sanchez from EMAC. Aaron Judge from Alucard. Alvarez from Folkmat. Charillo from Chris Williams. We've got Diaz from William Westry. Rosarena from Mike Lawrence. We've got Aaron Hines going with Mason Wynn. Johnsky Noel from Reg Kell. We've got Jimmy Jam going with Mauricio Dubon. Tommy Edman from Patrick Maduke. Mike Campbell going with Shea Langoliers. Austin Wells from Conglomerate Beatmakers. Gunnar Henderson from Francisco Rubio. And that is going to do it for us. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go check out DraftKings Pick 6 if you guys have it in your state and you haven't played it yet, because DraftKings Pick 6, I bring this up all the time. I'm very jealous that it isn't in New Jersey, because I see Eric making money at it. I go, boy, if Eric can make money at it, surely anybody else can, but it's just not available to me in New Jersey. So take advantage of it. Steal Eric's money if you're in a state that has DK Pick 6, you haven't played it already. Other than that, guys, have a great night. Enjoy all the football this weekend. We also got the big MMA slate. My video's up on the channel if you guys want to check it out. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you back here on the channel on Sunday.